Abilities have been a part of the Pokemon franchise since Generation 3. Despite the fact we've been granted some phenomenal abilities, we also have some abilities that are absolutely terrible. So in today's video, I want to give a spotlight to the top 10 worst abilities in Pokemon. Some abilities on this list are just not great, but some of the abilities we go over today are so bad, they outright make these Pokemon that have them unusable. If you enjoy this type of content and want to see more top 10s like this, leave a like on the video and subscribe for more. Before we start though, I have a new channel called Mystic Reads where I read anime fanfics, so if that's up your alley, consider checking it out. Also, over on Mystic Umbreon Shorts, we're doing 5 facts about every single Pokemon every single day. So if you like Mystic Umbreon daily content, check out both those channels. Links will be in the iCard and the description below. Starting off our list at number 10 today is our only joint entry on today's list, being Plus and Minus. While Runaway had no actual competitive use, this ability only actually has any use in double battles specifically. And the Pokemon you can actually pull the combo off with typically are horrible partners. Plus and Minus started as a way to help give Plusle and Minun a gimmick, as the Plus and Minus Pokemon. However, as time has progressed, these abilities have been given out to typically other electric or steel type Pokemon. These abilities boost the user's special attack stat by 1.5 times, as long as one active Pokemon has plus and the other has minus. It's quite literally the same ability in every other sense, besides the requirement that one Pokemon has plus and the other Pokemon has minus. The biggest detriment to this ability isn't even that it's doubles exclusive though, it's the distributement. These abilities are exclusively given out to Pokemon with a ground weakness, and considering they are meant to only be used in double battles, that's a terrible weakness for 2 of your Pokemon currently on the field together to share. Earthquake is widely considered one of the best moves you can actually use in doubles, and having 2 Pokemon out at once, weak to the move, is one of the biggest handicaps you can give yourself. While this ability typically will not do anything bad for you outside of this, I figured the usefulness of Plus and Minus outside of doubles still landed it at number 10 on today's list. Our number 9 ability today is the ability Rivalry. Rivalry actually has a strong benefit to the user, being the fact you'll gain 1.25 times for all of your attacks, as long as your opponent has the opposite gender. On paper, this seems like a random chance to actually boost your offense, and there are definitely scenarios you can make this guaranteed in your favor, such as if you're using a Rivalry Nidoqueen against a Tauros, which can only be male. However, if this was all Rivalry did, it wouldn't be on our list today. Rivalry will also lower your attack by 0.75 times for both offensive stats if the opponent's gender matches your own Pokemon. This means that there's a random chance for your attacks to do less damage to the opponent, and it's entirely based on something you can't even control. You can't change your opponent's Pokemon gender or swap your own Pokemon out in order to reset the decrease to your offenses, like you could if your opponent had a Pokemon with Intimidate, for example. You're stuck with this drop until a new Pokemon enters the field, hoping it happens to be the opposite gender. Rivalry is so luck reliant, and unlike an ability such as Moody or Serene Grace, you can't even try to make the ability in your favor, leaving it at number 9 on today's list. Our 8th ability today is none other than Illuminate. Illuminate is one of those abilities that has no actual use in competitive, despite having the potential to do a really simple but beneficial effect. And I find it pretty disappointing. Illuminate makes it so wild Pokemon are twice as common if the user is in your first party slot, even if it faints. I'm honestly shocked they only gave Illuminate this effect, because I actually think they just barely missed the mark here. I think Illuminate should have a second effect in battle, where it made your move's accuracy 1.1 times more accurate. This would be in the same vein as the ability Victory Star for Victini, which currently the best thing about it is that V-Create has 100% accuracy now instead of 95%. Otherwise, Illuminate isn't really even close to an uncompetitive ability. This would actually be pretty cool in game though, as you could use Starmie with Illuminate and Hydro Pump in order to have a better chance to hit your move. I'm unsure why Illuminate didn't have this second effect personally. However, at least it doesn't handicap anything about the user other than its ability, which keeps it at number 8 on today's list. The 7th worst ability on our list today is one of our newest, being Ball Fetch. Ball Fetch was introduced in Generation 8 as a fun ability for Yamper, where it would have a chance of retrieving the first Pokeball you throw in battle. That's it. That's all Ball Fetch does. You have to also not be holding an item at all to use this ability. So not only is it actually useless outside of catching Pokemon, but you're handicapping Yamper by forcing it to run no item in battle. While something like Pickup at least also has a similar issue of forcing you to leave your item slot empty. At least Pickup can retrieve rarer items than Pokeballs, such as Evolution Stones and even TMs. Ball Fetch would be cool if there was some competitive aspect to it, but in all honesty, what would that even be? Ball Fetch is such an oddly specific ability that truly does only matter when you're on a journey in Pokemon. The only actual use I could think of for this is at the very beginning of a Nuzlocke when you're pretty low on money, and you're trying to save Pokeballs so you can catch as many Pokemon as possible early on. Otherwise, why does it even matter if you get one extra Pokeball back at a time or not? Because at worst, you could just pick up another trainer, or catch a pickup Pokemon and sell the items you grab to potentially buy several Pokeballs. Ball Fetch is quite literally just a worse version of Pickup, leaving it at number 7 on our list. If Ball Fetch wasn't bad enough, we now have our second ability under the worst pickup umbrella, with Honey Gather taking the number 6 slot. Honey Gather has been around for a few generations now, and it somehow makes Ball Fetch look like an actually useful ability. Honey Gather is basically the same exact function as Pickup, except you can only obtain honey. There isn't even a rare chance you might find some other item that could still be connected to nature or trees. It's only used for finding honey. Honey isn't even a hard item to obtain either. In a lot of games, you can outright buy it. And besides in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, there are methods you can obtain honey for free that utilize not using Honey Gather. As I mentioned earlier though, even Ball Fetch has more of an actual use than Honey Gather would, since at least in your earlier routes, the extra Pokeball could be useful in a Nuzlocke. The only things Honey helps with are Honey Tree encounters in Generation 4, and being the item version of using the move Sweet Scent out of battle. I can't really see a reason that you need an ability on a Pokemon just to buy honey, when most people will never actually use this item to begin with. This reasoning puts it at number 6 on today's list. Our 5th ability starts to truly fall into the outright terrible category, being Color Change. Color Change is an ability that changes types based on the move that you use last. Oh wait, that's Protein and Libero. Right, Color Change is actually just a missed opportunity. The real effect Color Change has is changing your type based on the last move the opponent used against you. If your opponent clicks Flamethrower, Kecleon will become a fire type now. Now, this admittedly isn't exactly the worst ability among bad ones. However, it had a lot of detriments. Changing your type with Color Change, unlike Libero and Protean, has a lot of risks. Your opponent will always control the type you are, unless you attack your own Kecleon in a double battle. This means they can control what type you are in order to try to attack you with a super effective attack, or even put you in a position where you lack a reliable stab. Kecleon losing all control of its typing is basically a death sentence, and in a best case scenario, you'll get Kecleon to resist a single Pokemon before your opponent just switches out. Color Change is basically useless now due to Protean and Libero, and unless they allow Color Change to finally function like these two abilities do, it can stay as a relic of the past. The 4th worst ability today is one that I'm sure a lot of people expected higher, being Defeatist. Despite this ability having not changed at all between gens, I do think Gen 8 made this ability in a more discreet way, less severe than it once was. Defeatist is the signature ability for Archon and Archeops, and when your HP reaches below half, you'll lose half of your physical and special attack stats. Similarly to Huge Power, this cuts the stat in half after all other modifiers, so it's not like you're going from 140 base attack to 70. You're going from an upwards of 416 attack all the way down to 208 attack at level 100. Even if you max out your EVs with an adamant nature, you'd at least be attacking with a 208 attack stat. To put it into perspective, you'd do more damage using an adamant max attack Joltik than you would with a Defeatist Archeops, and Joltik has only 47 base attack. I will say though, despite how bad this ability may seem, Generation 8 did leave it with a couple of things that make it at least less detrimental. The addition of heavy-duty boots is actually a massive benefit to Archon and Archeops, as they are able to avoid taking Stealth Rocks damage. Stealth Rocks in previous generations meant you could only bring in Archeops twice before entering Defeatist range, which is pretty terrifying. This relegated it to mostly lead sets. However, with boots, you can bring it in as often as you want. You could heal around Defeatist still, but not needing to use Roost every other time you bring in Archeops is a huge saving grace for an otherwise horrendous ability, because there's at least a few ways to avoid being harmed by Defeatist. It manages to only be ranked at number 4 on our list today. Coming in at number 3, we have the ability Slow Start. Slow Start makes it so Regigigas loses half of its physical attack and speed for the first 5 turns it's on the field. Similarly to Archeops, it's half of the actual stat, not the base stat. So this ends up being a massive detriment. Regigigas managed to at least become less terrible this gen, however, due to the additions of moves such as Protect and Rest. While being unable to viably run this 160 attack Pokemon with a Choice Band, you can at least use Protect and get around a few turns of Slow Start. The biggest thing that holds Slow Start back, however, is the fact that you actually reset the ability every time you switch in Regigigas. This means that you need to wait until the 6th turn in a row Regigigas is present for it to be useful. It's hard enough to keep a Pokemon alive for 6 turns, even if you're using Protect for 3 of those. But now, if my opponent brings in an offensive fighting type, I have to start again from 0 to get out of Slow Start. It's honestly obnoxious this ability can't at least keep a timer for the entire match for how many turns you've waited. Even moves such as Rest do this. However, despite having such an obnoxious handicap, at least this ability has the chance to not be a constant pain, keeping Slow Start at number 3 today. Our second worst ability on today's list comes in the form of Truant. I know this is typically the poster child of bad abilities, but trust me, there is actually one ability I found that makes Truant look like it's as good as Adaptability. For those who aren't aware, Truant is an ability exclusive to the Slacking line that makes it completely unable to attack every other turn. It's basically the way Game Freak decided to balance a Pokemon that has legendary stats that's found fairly easily at the start of your journey. It's quite literally exactly as if you spent every other turn using the move Giga Impact. Except at least in this case, you can switch out on the following turn. Unless of course you actually did use Giga Impact on the turn you attacked. Which then, you're actually stuck for a turn without even being able to swap like you normally would when using Giga Impact. Speaking of Giga Impact, that actually gets into the one saving grace of Truant I think a lot of people overlook. Giga Impact actually becomes a very low drawback move for Slacking, which is actually incredible considering its immense 160 attack stat, as well as its incredible bulk and 100 speed. Slacking can utilize a choice banded set with Giga Impact, as well as coverage for normal type switch-ins, such as Earthquake and Shadow Claw, in an effort to make its entire job just trying to OHKO a Pokemon or two. I will say though, Pokemon Radical Red actually did a phenomenal job at making Truant a pretty tame ability for Slacking, as they do allow you to use healing moves such as Slack Off on the turns you otherwise couldn't attack. Which, if Pokemon ended up taking this approach, next generation, when we cover the worst abilities, you probably wouldn't even see Truant making the list at all. For now though, it's going to be our runner-up on the list today. Our worst ability of all time is an ability I'm sure you actually forgot existed. The ability is only actually on a single Pokemon, and even then, that Pokemon has other abilities it can run that are infinitely stronger. The worst ability of all time is the ability Stall, which makes the Pokemon with this ability always move last in its priority bracket. This means unless your opponent uses a move such as Roar or Trick Room, you'll be attacking last every single turn. While the other abilities I mentioned before either harm your attack or make it so you can't attack at all, Sableye's stats in tandem with it being forced to always move last would make it so Sableye is basically just waiting to be KO'd by the opponent. Stall as an ability has a fairly unique concept at least. However, it's such a ridiculous nerf to any Pokemon you give it to. Even if a Pokemon like Arceus had this ability, it'd borderline seem balanced. Forcing yourself to take the opposing Pokemon's attacks before you can even deal anything is a ridiculously bad hindrance. And I can't imagine why this ability was ever actually created. Especially considering the ability was actually made in Generation 4. So it definitely wasn't because people found Sableye to be too good, or they'd have given Stall the Spiritomb as well. I think Pokemon would need to really try hard to ever make an ability worse than Stall. And even if they ever did, I think it basically takes some combination of Stall and Defeatist for it to even truly reach a point that it could be worse than Stall. So that's our list for the top 10 worst abilities in Pokemon. Make sure to comment your lists for what abilities you think are the worst down below. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more top 10 content like this. Hey, it's the outro. Isn't that exciting? Thank you for enjoying another Mystic Umbreon video. We're getting ready to enter the fall, and the final stretch of hype for Scarlet and Violet is here. The excitement for Pokemon's 9th generation is at its peak, and I couldn't be more excited. We've still got plenty to cover before then though, so keep yourselves locked in. If you're interested in more Mystic content, check out my TikTok and Mystic Umbreon Shorts channel. If we get the 10K followers on TikTok, and we're super close, I'll be doing a viewer's choice video. Also, if you're into fanfictions and what ifs, check out Mystic Reads. I offer a ton of creative spoken word content on there, so come and join me. That's all for now. Make sure you subscribe for more fantastic content, and I'll see you next time.